We are your home theater and AV questions answered. This is AVRant. Want your home theater or AV question answered by Tom and Rob? Send it to question@avrant.com. Welcome to another edition of AVRant. I'm Tom Antry, and I'm here with
Rob H. This is AVRant. It's your home theater and AV questions answered. And I took extra long. I made a start late this morning, even though Tom was ready. So here we are.
I told him I was going to be late, and I was late. It just wasn't as late as I normally would be.
It shouldn't be quite as packed a show, but we'll see how we go. Every time I say that, we seem to manage to go over time anyway. So we'll see how it is.
Yeah, I have. Again, I don't have a heart out, but I do have I have stuff to do out.
Yep.
So those of you wondering what's going on with the house, and I don't know why you would be, the too long didn't read version is they tried again to find the leak. The leak detection company came out again because they were like, listen, we're not finding it. And they came out and they basically said, listen, you're going to have to replumb your house. So we are replumbing the house, and that will happen next week, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So for Rob, what does that mean? That means I don't know. I don't know what the condition of the house.
I'm not going to expect or count on you being here, and you should obviously how it's filling up with water, so you know there's a leak. It's not
right.
Like
So the problem is that the pipes are sunk inside the concrete in the footer or something. I don't quite understand. That's not how. I guess that's not how it's supposed to be, but that's how it was. And somebody messed up. Basically at the city, who said who inspected it and said it was fine or whatever.
Somebody signed off on it, or
somebody
did
signed
they?
off on it, or did they? I don't know. My wife has explained this to me 2 or 3 times, and my eyes glaze over when she starts talking about the difference between the footer and the. It's way down there, and basically the leak detection company said if it's very much. From everything we can tell, it is inside the concrete, which means that what has happened is the house has settled or whatever, however things go when you put large weights on top of the masses of concrete, and it's cracked the pipe, and that's where the leak is coming from.
Yeah,
and
I could see that for sure.
We could find it. We could Swiss cheese your foundation, which you shouldn't do, to find this leak.
Right.
And then we could fix it, but then over time your house is...
Other pipes are also... have been installed that way. Yeah. I can see the logic of it. The
logic is very clear. The logic was also presented to us weeks ago when the first guy said, I think you guys should really replumb this house.
No, but I mean, given the obvious cost disadvantage of doing that, I'm still surprised that it hasn't been possible to just find where this leak is actually happening, because it's in the span between the hot water heater and your kitchen.
So what happened was the house was initially designed, like the initial design for the house that was submitted to the city had all the bedrooms and bathrooms on the other side of the house.
Okay.
So where this leak is where a bathroom would have been, not inside the kitchen. So it is kind of in the middle of the floor on the outside of the kitchen in the living room. And everybody's like, why is there even a pipe over here? It doesn't make sense why there would be a pipe. Well, the reason that it's there is because that's where they initially planned on putting all the bedrooms and bathrooms.
Yeah, I wonder if something just didn't get capped properly, if that's all it is.
Well, it doesn't matter. We can't find it. And there's a huge hole. Believe me, they have dug underneath the cabinets in my kitchen trying to find this thing, and it's not being found. So it's a done deal. They're coming on Monday. I don't know what, because most of it's going to be just fitting pipes in the attic and
because it's going to be just disconnecting what is there currently and redoing it from the hot water heater.
It's like 3 days of work is what they estimate, and the biggest problem is that they have to trench a new line to the island in the kitchen where the sink is.
Yeah, because can't go up and down for that one.
Not without installing something else into the like a wall
highly unsightly column that comes down from the ceiling to the island, making it not much of an island anymore.
So that's the biggest problem. The rest of it's all like attic and wall work. So they'll cut holes behind all the fixtures where there's drywall at, and there they'll cut like a 12-inch square behind the fixtures, and then they'll run pipes, and they're going to run everything dry for about 3 days, and then they get an inspector out here basically they pressure test the whole system, ensure that there's no leaks anywhere, and then it really only takes an hour or two, maybe 3 the most, to swap over the fixtures. You basically
the
disconnect the other pipes.
If things are done that way and there's very little digging that has to be done, it sounds like there's some digging that has to be done, but not like literally the entire house has to be redug type of thing. So it's like the actual installing of the pipes, I mean, that I would definitely believe is a 3-day job. But like then all the little drywall repairs and like if you don't want
that's going to be going on for quite some time.
Yeah, if you don't want any of the paint to be noticeable, it means essentially repainting the entire house. Otherwise, you have that little patch that has to be blended in, which is never flawless looking when you shine a light on it. And
we're going to see because these these walls were just painted. Like every wall in this house was just painted when we moved in 6 months ago. So we'll see how it ends up looking. We're not repainting the whole house. I'll tell you that right now. We're going to have, I'll put a piece of furniture in front of every single one of these things.
No direct lighting on where any of the patches are made. And it's like, it's not like they have to literally open the whole wall because you can fit the pipe in and down and up and whatever. And I would assume they're using the flexible pipe as opposed to, rigid copper, which can be bent, but then not always the best. But oh boy, wow.
So, anyways, I'm sorry
to
hear
that.
Put in the ground, I'm pretty sure is copper. Everything else is going to be the PVC FC. I don't know.
I don't even know what
there's a new one. There's
recommended one is these days. Yeah,
whatever it is, it'll be up to code. I assure you.
Not been so gung ho on the PEX piping anymore, unfortunately. So.
Yeah. So we will see. Yeah. So that's basically what's been going on with me. I have a little update on the home theater situation. So I have hung all 4 of the elevation speakers. So the Atmos speakers are hung. That's all done, ready to go. I've gotten in the Ghost Wire that I ordered, but the extra connectors that I need, because I got 50 feet of Ghost Wire, I'm just going straight up the wall. I'm basically going to plug it in at the bottom and then go straight up the wall. The extra 4 connectors I need for the other 2 speakers, because it comes with 4 connectors, like 50 feet and 4 connectors. The extra 4 connectors I'll need for the other 2 speakers, because I'm only doing like 10-foot runs of this stuff. I'm still waiting on. It's actually supposed to be delivered today. Okay. Ordered speaker stands for the front and the rear. The rear ones arrived yesterday. I haven't had a chance to take them out of the box, but I did this.
Which ones did you go with? Because we chatted a little bit about that offline, you and I.
I went with the ones from B&H Photo that you recommended.
Okay.
So
I think those are the Kanto ones. Because they're pretty nice looking and adjustable. And I think they went up to 42 inches max height.
Yes.
Like
so
that.
The reason why I wanted these was because I'm not exactly sure where I'm placing these speakers yet. Okay. And so they are able to, like, if you have a wall mountable speaker, they are able to attach to the back of it, just like they have multiple ways of doing it. Okay. So there is something for a keyhole mount that you can, I think you can like lock in. You can lock into this thing. There's also like a bar that it comes with, that comes across like parallel with the ground, that you can attach the back of this thing on if you want to.
Yeah, if it's got a screw hole mount instead of a keyhole mount.
Yeah, and they have round, flat bases which easily slide underneath things like couches. So I am planning on essentially taking some the rubber mat that you put on the floor of your gym.
Okay.
Those interlocking ones. I'm going to cut round discs out of that and basically glue those to the bottom of this thing so that they'll be nice and decoupled. And so they are here and ready to go, and everything's in process for getting the whole thing set up. I did find out that apparently my Ultra HD player is in a box someplace in this house. I found it. I don't know it has a power cable.
Your Sony, yeah? Sony XH700, I think you had?
Yes. And so that one is in here somewhere.
Okay.
So, yay, I guess.
Luckily, that power cord, I think, is I think it's just the figure 8 type of power cord that goes in there. I'm pretty sure it's not a IEC inlet on the player itself. It's the figure 8
I think so,
inlet.
But I'll have to double check that and get something. So that's where we are in all of that. So
I was curious.
So next week is maybe Tom's here, maybe Tom's not.
Yeah. The Ghost Wire installation, did you like mud and paint over it, or you just adhered the Ghost Wire?
We have not. We're this whole weekend has been us looking at plans and talking to people about plumbing. So that arrived, and I'm still but we are going to mud. I think the plan is to mud over it.
Okay. I mean,
my wife is.
When other parts of the house are going to have to be painted, at the very least, the patches will have to be painted, then maybe you do that at the same time. It would kind of make sense.
Yes, we will. So we're going to get that installed. Like I said, I'm waiting for the other 4 connectors. Yeah. Because I think you have to put the connectors on before you attach it to the wall. I think that's kind of how that works, but I will have to look.
Yeah. Just make sure once it's mudded and painted, and therefore, like, really very invisible. Make sure hanging a acoustic panel or something on the wall. you don't want to tap anything through the wire.
Right through that.
Which is on the exterior of the wall. The Ghost Wire will be. It's not inside the wall.
Yeah. Which is actually in some ways kind of nice, because then you don't have to,
But the danger is forgetting it's there and hanging a picture right where that wire is.
That's right. So what's been going on with you, Rob?
I can't say there's been a whole lot this past week. Mostly just preparing tax stuff and that, and waiting on some things that were definitely supposed to have been here by law at the end of February and haven't arrived in my inbox or in my mailbox just yet. So, getting a little bit antsy there. I want to get taxes for all the people that I look after their taxes, as well as my own. My own are very, very easy, but I'm still waiting on something for myself as well. Our tax deadline in Canada is not until April 30th. We don't have the middle of April like the US does. So it's not like I'm in a time crunch just yet, but I still like to get those things done in case adjustments need to be made. So yeah, it's tax season over on my neck of the woods.
We have tax season going on here, I know, because my wife has been talking about it. I'm like,
for sure.
Yes. Good. Or bad. I don't know. However you feel about it is how I feel about it.
Right.
So she's taking care of all that. All right. I didn't watch much this week. So the only thing I will say is that Ryan Gosling was on Saturday Night Live this week.
Heard about that. Didn't see it. Heard about it.
Yes. Apparently, they just have given up with him. This man, they have decided that he is gonna laugh through every single scene.
They actively try to make him. It's their favorite thing about him.
So they have given up trying to have him be able to make it through the scene. So there's a particular scene in this episode where it's teacher, he's playing a teacher with another actor who also breaks quite often, and that they're catching the kids with notes.
Okay.
And then they flash an image up on the screen that says, we changed all the notes from rehearsals.
Right.
The notes are not the same. So they're having to read these live on
message on the screen. That's
on
bizarre.
The screen. They put it on the screen. They're like, we are trolling the heck out of this guy. It is. My wife was crying. I was laughing uncontrollably. My wife was crying. We had to rewind a couple of scenes because we were laughing. What did he say? What did he say? Because we couldn't hear him. It was by far the funniest scene. And on top of that, usually the highlight of Saturday Night Live for me is the weekend update.
Sure.
And usually everything after weekend update is like, these are all the skits that aren't that good. We laughed at least as much, if not more, after the weekend update at the scenes than we did before the weekend update scenes.
Yeah, they definitely front load that show. They tried to take the strongest skits and put them first, and
obviously,
weakest at the back.
For obvious reasons. So if you did not see the March, whatever, 7th, 8th, whatever that was, Saturday Night
7th.
Live 2026, go find it with Ryan Gosling.
Okay.
It is just... they are cracking up throughout the entire thing. Nobody, the most probably because I thought that Lorne Michaels was like a stickler on not cracking, and that was like a big thing.
Oh well, everyone says like the message is that they take it very seriously, and that no one has ever actually been disciplined or fired for breaking, and they act like it's a big deal. But obvious, I mean, look, Jimmy Fallon was there for how many years? Like, did he ever say a single word without breaking? So yeah, and then,
they even got Keenan to crack, and he never really cracks.
He never cracks. Yeah, but he's also been there for 100 years, so he's seen it all. But
they even got him to crack this time. It was like uncontrollable. It was so good. So I would highly recommend that. So Rob, what downer drama did you watch this week?
Right. Well, I'm continuing on with the nominations for the 2025 Oscars, and so I watched one battle after another. So yeah, this was written and directed by Paul Thomas Anderson. You know him from There Will Be Blood and Magnolia and Punch Drunk Love and several other films. And so yeah, this is his latest one, starring Leonardo DiCaprio and Sean Penn. And then you got supporting roles from Benicio del Toro and Regina Hall. And then I think this was the second movie that young actress Chase Infinity has shown up in. But they sort of did They didn't say introducing. They gave her an and prestige credit at the end of the credits, but that's kind of like introducing. So maybe they had to change that because the other movie that she filmed in the same year came out first, so they had to change it from introducing. But anyway, yes. Okay, let's see.
Oh, Chase Infinity, yes. That sounds like a made-up name, but that's...
It is not. It is her real name. But anyway, one battle after another. A very appropriate title. This movie is definitely one battle after another. So how do I approach this? Let's see. Art, right? Art in general. One of the things that art...
Never a good sign when you have to start.
Here we go.
Go on.
One of the things of that art in general is a admirable goal of art is to get it to make you inspect yourself, right? Get you to look a little inward and think about your own attitude towards things. And this movie certainly did that for me because I hated every person in this movie. I didn't find a single person that I connected with or was rooting for in any way. If every single one of them had failed and died and had a horrible fate come to every single one of these characters, I would not have shed a single tear, and I would have felt absolutely fine with that. Everyone in this movie is awful. Every character in this movie is someone I absolutely would not want to be around, saving perhaps Regina Hall. She's the only character I felt a tiny bit of sympathy toward, and she is in a tiny portion of this movie. It's barely a supporting role. So not as though I could glom onto that character and root for her, just a tiny little bit part, but maybe the only character that I felt any sort of sympathy toward. So what, that's me, because I know from reading and listening to other people who have reviewed this movie, and I absolutely understand many people who said aspects of this movie spoke to my life experience. And there are some scenes that aren't exactly like, it's not like spotlight camera holding on it, make you look at this. It's like, stuff going on in the background where people are like, it's not very often depicted in movies, and people appreciated that real life experiences for immigrants, for minorities, for people who are poor and downtrodden and have the entire government apparatus against them. It's like stuff that just isn't often portrayed, and they appreciated that it was portrayed in this movie, and I appreciated that it was portrayed in this movie, even though I can't say it's a lived experience for me. Like, that part of the movie I very much appreciate. I also appreciate, like, this is a well-made movie. It shot very well. It was all shot on VistaVision film in a 1.5:1 aspect ratio. Okay. And so it was, much of it was converted to IMAX and shown in the full 1.43:1, where they cropped a little bit of the left and right to make the 1.5:1 aspect fit the 1.43:1, and then for the other IMAX theaters, the digital ones, of course, the tops and bottoms were cropped to 1.9 to fit that aspect ratio. The home release is just released in 16:9, 1.78:1, so a little bit of the top and the bottom is cropped off. They didn't do a zooming or panning and scanning, anything like that. There's a little bit of a crop of the original part that was shot here. So a lot of the movies this year that were nominated are making use of this taller aspect ratio in one form or another. This chose 1.5 to 1, the way that it was shot. But again, they are using that verticality, especially in not the very last scene, but the last sort of action sequence that takes place, which is all... I guess you could call it a car chase, but it's a little bit of an unusual car chase in that there are no other cars on the road besides two. It's a pursuit more than it is a chase. It's a pursuit scene, and it's just these long, stretching, hilly roads. And I thought that scene was... I hadn't really seen that before. I hadn't seen a car scene exactly like that before, where they use the hilly landscape... both like to trick the audience and to trick the pursuit car character. And I thought, okay, that was kind of novel. I appreciated that chase scene. Another thing that I liked about this movie is after I get past the first hour and 15 minutes, which, oh boy, I was struggling to keep watching this movie. I'm like, I'm going to watch this movie. I'm going to watch it to the end. But I was like, I hate everybody in this movie, and I don't care what happens to them, and I'm not rooting for anybody, and whatever goes on, I'm not going to care. But after an hour and 15 minutes of that, because this is a 2 hour and 45-minute long movie.
Of course it is.
So basically, after the first half of this movie, it is just kinetic. It just moves and moves and moves, and as the title suggests, it's one battle after another, and it is a pursuit, and it's a chase, and it's a struggle, and it's one thing after another, very much so, and it goes and goes and goes and goes. On a technical level, one of the criticisms I have is this is a movie where the score... I found almost punishing. It's not that it's particularly loud and cacophonous or something like that, but it's one of the movies where I'm struggling a little bit to hear what everyone is saying. The music is constant and not quiet, and it's going and going and going and going, and it's like, yeah, you gotta struggle a little bit to make out what everybody is saying in this movie, and it never ever ends. There are a couple of very strange, abrupt edits that didn't fit with the rest of the movie. It's not like it was a style choice that was used frequently. There's like two really abrupt, strange cuts where I'm like, was this movie 3 hours long and they just needed to chop something out? Because that was a strange cut in a couple of places. But yeah, so this story, I like, I don't want to spoil things for people who want to watch it, even though after what I'm saying, it might not be, it might not sound like a resounding thumbs up from Rob, which it isn't. But that's purely based on, whether I like this movie or not. I mean, it's a very similar story plot to Les Miserables, honestly, except that there is no hope. There is no redemption. There is no pathos. Nobody changes their attitude in this movie. Everybody ends with the exact same thoughts and feelings that they began with. So there are no character arcs. And like this movie just left me with the feeling of, well, if this is humanity, what's the point? Because the thing is, the way everything's depicted in this movie, I don't blame anyone on either side for never even attempting to have a conversation with the other side, because it is absolutely pointless for anyone to try and talk this through. So the fact that they are just at loggerheads and running from each other or fighting each other or whatever, like, okay, I get that with the way this movie is depicted. I'm not blaming any character in this movie for not attempting to have a conversation, but it's just like, it's hopeless. It's a hopeless, hopeless feeling. There is no chance for a conversation, let alone reconciliation. There is no chance that anybody is going to change their mind on any of this, and just watching 2 hours and 45 minutes of that just felt punishing. I was like what am I supposed to take from this movie? That life is one battle after another, that's all it is, and that's the best we can hope for, is that you survive to fight another day, and there will never be a better day to come. There will just be another day, and that's the message I got from this movie, which is not a fantastic feeling to be left with. Performances in this movie, I mean, Sean Penn is like putting in more energy than I've seen him put into a role in years. in an absolutely despicable, loathsome character. But there's a 15 or 16 year time jump in this movie, and he is the only one that they made zero effort to look any different whatsoever. He looks exactly the same as the character 16 years ago as he does 16 years on. Everybody else, they tried to age up at least a little bit and make it look like some time has passed. He looks exactly the same from beginning to end.
Maybe they're trying to say that evil doesn't change over time,
something like that. This is Paul Thomas Anderson, so for the first half of this movie, I was kind of questioning like are we even supposed to be on either side of this thing? And maybe that's the point, is that both sides are utterly despicable and there's no hope for anyone. But it's Paul Thomas Anderson, so eventually he makes it very clear which side we're on in this movie, and but does so in a cartoonish way. Eventually the rich white people are just cartoon caricatures, as they often become in Paul Thomas Anderson movies. And it's kind of like, well, I mean, I already wasn't on their side, but it doesn't really make me on the other people's side all that much. Benicio del Toro, I thought, was the most entertaining part of this movie. If I could maybe latch on to anybody whatsoever. But Leonardo DiCaprio, he always puts in the effort as an actor, but I don't think he's a stoner in real life, because he was the least convincing stoner I've seen on screen in quite some time. I live in Vancouver. I know a lot of stoners. And so I don't know if he's ever been high in real life, but it did not ring true to me. And also, most people who are utterly addicted to marijuana, they kind of have their favorite way of using marijuana. And this movie went to great lengths to show that he uses every form of marijuana possible, which just didn't, I don't know, maybe there's somebody out there who's like that, but it didn't quite feel right to me. It was it felt like a very put on stoner performance, where he vacillated between being the dude in The Big Lebowski and then 1980s This Is Your Brain on Drugs commercial. That was the depiction of stoner that he went for. And I'm like, well, that just doesn't seem like real life. And it didn't click with me. Yeah. So there you go. Chase Infinity, much praise has been heaped upon her, and I thought she was good. I mean, when she first shows up in this movie, I was like, oh yeah, she's compelling. I like to watch her performance. But as it went along, we certainly get plenty of scenes to explain to us that she is afraid, but she's putting on a brave face, which totally makes sense for everything that's going on. But if I was just watching the scenes where she's putting on that brave face, I was like, I'm not reading any of the fear behind it, right? Where, the really great actors, they can put on a stone face, but you see that little bit of fear that's behind their eyes, or there's just a slight bit of movement that, gives away that they're not actually as confident as they're attempting to appear to be. She just looked like she really was that confident. So it's like, well, is she supposed to be that convincing in real life? Because the scene isn't being played that way. But also, she was, 15 or 16 when she made this movie? She's not so...
Jesus. Yeah.
I
mean, come on.
Well, yes, yeah, but I'm just saying, I'm just going at the amount of praise I've seen heaped upon her for this performance. I don't know if I go that far. I thought she was compelling. I think she has a great career ahead of her. She has a fantastic look, and she is good. And she wasn't swallowed up by being on screen next to Leonardo DiCaprio or anything like that. So yes, but I just thought the amount of effusive praise was maybe a little over the top from what I was seeing. So, I don't know. I don't know if anyone listening to my take on it, because this is very much me. I know that there are people who got a totally different experience watching this movie than I did, and I can understand how that is the case. But yeah, I just found every single character to be absolutely loathsome, and for that reason, I can't say I enjoyed watching this movie. It did get better after the first half for me, for my viewing.
I've made this comment before, but I'll make it again. I felt the same way when I watched Bad Lieutenant, the first one with Harvey Keitel, or the original with Harvey Keitel. I got to the end of that movie, and I was like, oh my God, why did I watch that? Why did I spend all this time watching this movie? And it wasn't 2 hours and 45 minutes, thank God. Yep. But it was just awful. It's and that's the extreme example of why I don't watch dramas in general. Okay. Obviously, but I like to watch things that take me out of reality and don't remind me how terrible reality can actually be. But I do like dramas too, but usually lighter ones, obviously, than that. So,
and here's the thing: I don't regret having watched this movie. Don't take that away from what I said. Yeah. I'm not sitting here wishing I had never seen it, because it is thought-provoking and it does make me inspect myself. Like, I am thinking about it like, well, why am I like that? Why couldn't I empathize or feel sympathy for some of these characters? That's something on me. That's, the movie is presenting something that in many ways I do think is pretty close to realistic. I think everything in this movie is a little bit, and it's Paul Thomas Anderson, so there are quite a few things that are a little bit tongue-in-cheek and satirical, intentionally. That is his milieu. But like I say, some of those scenes that are like, okay, I can see how that's somebody's lived experience and they would appreciate seeing that. Like, all of that matters to me and I appreciate it, and I respect it is done here. And it's not that I wish I hadn't watched it or something like, or don't feel that it's worthy of recognition. It is a movie that's well made and well produced and worthy of recognition. But yeah, for me to say it's certainly not a favorite, it's not an entertainment one. So that's where I come down on it. One battle after another, that was.
All right. Well, I'm not going to see it. This is AVRant, the podcast that answers your home theater and AV questions. To get your questions answered, all you have to do is ask. You ask by emailing us at question@avrant.com. You come to the website and find our shows, our show notes, links to any products or articles that we'll refer to during this podcast, as well as previous episodes and all of that. You can find us on facebook.com/AVRant podcast, youtube.com/AVRant. Contact Rob directly, rob@avrant.com. His socials is at First Reflect. I'm Tom at avrant.com. I do not really do socials anymore, unfortunately. I spend time on some of them. Facebook in particular, I do spend some time on Facebook, but I block more people than I follow. Sure. that makes sense.
I can understand.
I mostly use Facebook just to support local businesses that I am connected to in some way. So I am the target audience for many of these. I am a middle-aged white dude, and my opinion unfortunately matters more than it should. So like if I know somebody, I have a friend who started here in town a yarn shop. It's like they sell yarn for like knitting and stuff, and they have classes, and they have a coffee shop in there. And it's a really cute little store. I have it's just nothing to do with me, but it has everything to do with people who are connected to me. So my wife wants to go, and in fact, I am going to go as well and take a class. I want to figure out this knitting thing. I used to do cross stitch when I was a kid. Believe it or not. So I'm, I like the Common Thread is the name of the place. I'm hyping up here. Common Thread, St. Pete. Anyway, so I like all their posts just to help them out. I want to thank our listeners of the week. To become a listener of the week, support the podcast in some way. You can do that by going to avrant.com, click on the Buy Us a Cup of Coffee link, and send us a PayPal donation. And Marco did that this week, so thank you very much, Marco.
Yeah, for sure. Marco, thank you so much for that PayPal donation. We really appreciate the financial support.
We also have a Patreon for those who want to support us monthly and not think about it. Patreon.com/AVRant podcast. You can sign up there, and they will take every month a little bit of money, whatever you tell them, some money from you, and give most of it to us. So we currently have 120 patrons over at Patreon.com.
That's right. One more time. That is patreon.com/AVRant podcast if you'd like to sign up to make an automatic monthly donation. So a big thanks to our 120 patrons over there.
So we got notes of gratitude for keeping the podcast going from Infinite Gary, who, though he's thankful that the podcast is here, but he was not a fan of Frankenstein despite Rob's review. Maybe you'll like this.
One battle after another.
That's it. Punching each other in the face, whatever it's called. So notes of gratitude from Infinite Gary, Henry, Sean, and Gurinder. Thank you for thanking us.
That's right. I'll say the names one more time. We got Infinite Gary, Henry, Sean, and Gurinder. Thank you all very much for the notes of gratitude and encouragement. We really appreciate them. And a big, big thank you to everybody who continues to listen and send in your questions.
The Sofabaton, in the news here, the Sofabaton X2 Universal Remote has launched in full, finally, and Sofabaton has decided to run a clearance sale on the older X1S model, which is still a perfectly good remote. In fact, I would recommend it as well, based on everything everybody else has said about it. I haven't used it. X2 is great. I like the X2.
Yes.
I don't think it's perfect yet, but nothing's perfect, so whatever. But the X1S is, by all reports, very good. At the moment, it's already 20% off on Amazon, making the price $160, but you can get an extra 10% by using our promo code TOM. Hey, what?
Yep.
Tom X1S20.
Tom X1S20. That is the promo code Tom X1S20.
Why is it my name? Anyways, that brings the price down to $144. And that's before tax and shipping, of course, if shipping applies to you. So you enter the promo code in the payment section during Amazon checkout and make sure to check the box. The checkbox is ticked to apply your additional $16 discount. So, in full disclosure, obviously, the link in our show notes is an affiliate link. So we are making a small commission if you purchase through that link. So thank you very much. And the commission is a little higher if you use the promo code. But everything we said about the X1S and Andrew's review as posted on AV Gadgets all took place well before any affiliate link or promo code offer. I don't know why we're saying all these words. Doesn't matter. So we stand by all previous remarks. And if the X1S sounds like the right remote for you, right now you can save some money when you buy one, while it's still around. So the X1S, we have two different articles on AV Gadgets, both written by Andrew. So you can check those out. And I think Andrew's X2 remote review also kind of compares it a little bit to the X1S. Right.
Yeah. Now, Sofabaton didn't say anything about discontinuing the X1S outright. It's just that, they had a bunch of stock. Obviously, the X2 has been all of the focus in recent times. And they're like, hey, we got this stock of X1Ss. Let's run a little clearance sale. Let's, let folks who've reviewed it and talked about it on podcasts and influencers and all that, get in on it. So that's what's going on with the X1S.
So excuse me. RSL has launched a new section on their website. It's the Encore store, which I have not clicked on yet, so I don't know what that is. In the past, RSL offered open box items at an approximate 10% discount, but now they've introduced a cosmetic grading system so that open box products with minor or noticeable blemishes can be sold at an even greater cost savings. So their entire product lineup of bookshelf speakers in-ceiling and in-wall speakers and all subwoofer models in both black and white finish options are all listed in the Encore store, and you can request to be notified whenever stock is available. I paused there for a second because I was like, what possible blemishes could be on an in-ceiling speaker that anybody would care about? But I assume that the grill being dinged would be the one that would be. It could be
a section that's behind the grill. I mean, it's unusual to not put the grill on a in-ceiling speaker, but conceivably.
Yeah. I don't know who would not have a grill. But anyways, A-graded products are cosmetically flawless, exactly like the old open box items. B-grade versions have minor blemishes that you won't notice from your seat, only up close. And C-grade have noticeable cosmetic blemishes and the biggest discount, as a result. RSL stands firm that every item in their Encore store is individually checked and tested, and they guarantee that the performance is flawless. They provide the exact same warranty and support as their brand new items, so no 90-day limit or anything like that. Sales are final, though, and inventory is very limited, with availability changing on a constant basis. So you also cannot apply any discount codes or promo codes to Encore store items. But if you were looking for even lower prices on RSL Encore, and you're willing to wait and pounce when the stock becomes available, keeping an eye on their new Encore store might be a good idea. So there you go.
Yeah. So, just figured that was worthy update, because very often one of the reasons that we're gung-ho about especially the RSL speed woofer subwoofers is that, right now, if you're trying to find bang for the buck, if you're trying to get extension and output at the lowest price that you can find in a brand new product, I mean, people always point out there's the used market, and that is true, but we like to point to, products that you can buy brand new.
Some people do not like to buy used products.
That's right.
It's okay
for just general advice, but here is a way, if price is the number one factor, directly from the manufacturer, with what I like most of all is a full warranty, right? So often when you buy B stock or open box, it's only a 90-day warranty or something like that, and they're like, no, it is the full warranty as if it were new. But just be aware, there might be a cosmetic blemish, but they have checked every single individual unit and confirmed that the performance is right. So in a way, sometimes like if you're getting the A stock at a 10% discount essentially, but it's an individually checked unit, like sometimes I kind of prefer that to like even buying brand new, because it's like this very unit has been checked and confirmed that it works properly. So there's no real chance of getting a brand new unit. You open up and something is defective. So there you go.
At the very least, they turned it on.
That's
and make
right.
sure, you know what I mean? I wish someone had individually checked my TV before I bought
Indeed.
it.
Exactly.
I don't know that they would have found what was wrong with it, but maybe they would have. All right. Also in the news, in her new role as CEO of Microsoft Gaming, Asha Sharma quickly made some waves by publicly releasing the code name for the next Xbox console and outright confirming the rumor that it will play both Xbox and PC games. So they're just releasing a PC. That's all they're doing.
That's
with the
I
Xbox
don't know how
emulator
else you do
on
that.
It. It's a PC with the Xbox emulator on it. Okay, that's
Could
all
be.
it is. That's
Could
fine.
be.
Just call a spade a spade. The code name is Project Helix, which doesn't invoke any thoughts of AI. By the way, I've never thought of AI when somebody said Project Helix. Project Helix, you might as well call it Resident Evil the console. Has anyone at Xbox ever played a game? That's the one thing I really wonder.
Phil Spencer definitely used to, but he's retired now. So
he is. But Helix, look at the logo of this thing. It looks like the T-virus thing, whatever it was.
Obviously they're pulling from a double helix DNA strand.
I know what they're pulling from, but what it looks like is that you're going to turn into a zombie by the end of this. So, codename is Project Helix, and it already has a logo that plays off both the old X theme and the Helix name, so perhaps that name is going to stick.
I wouldn't mind, if the next generation is just Xbox Helix, I don't think that's a bad name. I don't know why they would develop this logo and then never use it other than as a development logo. I guess that happens. You have development logos, but
it's going to be called Xbox it's going to be called something stupid. Well, Helix is actually not a bad name. Xbox Helix would be kind of cool. Or just drop the whole Xbox thing and just call it Helix.
It could be. And I kind of dig the logo, to be honest. I think it's a pretty decent logo, mixing the X and the double helix DNA into the shape of an X. And I think that all kind of works well.
What was the company's name in Resident Evil? What is the company's name? Sorry.
That's the Umbrella Corporation.
That's it. Umbrella Corporation. Umbrella Corporation was always really good at marketing. That's how they got people to buy all their products. They were good with logos.
But I also think, I'll let you get through the rest of the news, but then I'll make a comment on what I think this logo kind of hints at a little bit, potentially.
Okay. So, AMD CEO already confirmed that the next Xbox console will continue forward with AMD processing and graphics, so backwards compatibility should be a given, especially considering it's just an emulator anyways.
It's a PC.
But with the confirmation that Project Helix will also play PC games, some of the speculation is obvious. Will this new home console function just like the recent Asus ROG Xbox Ally?
Yes.
Handheld units. It's just running full Windows 11, but with an Xbox skin interface on top, trying to make it look and feel a little bit more console-like. And if it's running Windows underneath, so that in the end all PC games are fully supported, how much is it going to cost? Some early leaks based on purchase orders for parts have led to rumors that the starting price might be upwards of $1,000. Mm-hmm. For his part, Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella tried to put to rest rumors that the Microsoft is looking to sunset the entire Xbox business. He outright said that Microsoft is long on gaming and that they will continue to invest in Xbox, which is the first thing they say right before they start cutting jobs, by the way. Literally the first thing. It's ugh. But he also said it's up to this new leadership team to show an excellence in execution and creativity. Okay. Yep. Every word out of this thing screams this is the end, and we put a woman in charge so we can blame her for it. After years and years of men running this thing into the ground, we're going to put a woman in charge. We're going to charge $1,000 or more for the console. No one's going to like it, and we'll blame the woman and shutter the doors, and they'll be their fault. the whole thing is just, it just sounds like death knell for Xbox.
So my comment about this logo, whether this is just a development logo or whether it ends up being something similar to the final logo, but I mean, you've got the two strands, right, that are crossing to form the X, and I'm like, okay, we've got the Asus ROG Xbox Ally and the Xbox Ally X handheld units, and those let you boot into just the regular old stock Windows 11 desktop if you want to. You can just go to that Windows interface and it's on your little handheld, and there's Windows with its start menu and everything, and then you can also just click the Xbox button, the actual branded Xbox button, and go to the Xbox interface, which is running as a it's almost like it's running as an app on top of Windows, is more like what's going on there, but with the the simplified controls and the streamlined interface, and supposedly this sort of pared back version of Windows 11 underneath it so that it isn't so resource hogging and intensive behind the scenes when you're in the Xbox interface. And I'm like, okay, they've already done that with the handhelds that you can buy now. You take a look at this logo and it's like, well, is that what the two separate and intersecting and overlapping strands kind of hint at? That this really is going to be like a dual boot situation? You choose whether you go to the full-on Windows 11 interface and then, go to your Steam game library or your Epic Games library or wherever you want to go, play all your PC games in a full-on Windows 11, interface, and then have this Xbox layer version app, whatever you want to describe it, as a basically completely separate experience that you go to exactly the way it is on the current Asus handhelds. And I'm like, all of that seems plausible, right? It seems like maybe the likely, I've seen articles saying like, no, they have to have, if you're going to call it a home console, if you're going to call it an Xbox, and you're not just going to call it, like Tom alluded to, a computer, a PC, a Windows PC that is running Xbox emulation on it. Like, if you're going to call it a home console, then it needs to have a single streamlined interface with nothing but the pared down version of Windows so that it is only there to play games, and you're not going to see someone running Microsoft Office on their Xbox Helix. But I'm like, that's not what they're doing right now with the handhelds. There's, rumors that they're aiming to get this thing out by the end of next year, 2027. I'm like, I wouldn't predict that they've rewritten all of Windows to work in the way that gamers want it to. I'm like, they're not turning to Linux. They're not going to use Steam OS. None of those things are going to happen. It's going to be a Windows machine if they're going to run PC games in one form or another. So yeah, we'll see how it all goes. But I didn't take Satya Nadella's comments as particularly confidence-inducing. It sure sounds like, all right, show us. We're giving you one last chance with this Xbox experiment. Show us that you can actually make a go of this thing. That's what I read into it. Again, that's purely my interpretation of what was said there, but that's how I'm feeling about it. So my biggest thought on all of this is that if you're anything other than a first-party developer, right, any of the third-party developers, we've already seen in this current generation that I think a gigantic mistake was made on the part of all of the console manufacturers, which is that they're like, we have our installed base of PlayStation 4 and Xbox One consumers, and they're like, don't leave any of them behind. Don't force them to upgrade to the new console. Every game that comes out for the new console there should be a version that there's still a PlayStation 4 version and an Xbox One version that you can still play. And then even if some of these third-party developers dared to make a game that will only run on the much, much faster hard drives of the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series, there was still the stupid Xbox Series S. I never liked the Series. I know there are people who are fans of the Series S and thought it was a good idea that there's a less expensive version that, only runs in 1080p and not 4K, and supposedly that's all you're giving up. But I'm like, to my mind, all it ever did was completely kneecap game developers and say, your game still has to run on this less powerful machine, and you can't just go whole hog and make a version of the game that is optimized to only run on the higher power machines. this Helix box, if it's anything close to $1,000, because that's what a gaming PC that's going to be anywhere near decent to run games in 4K would need to cost, I'm like, it's going to be kneecapped again. Guess what third-party game developers are going to do? They're going to make darn well sure that their game, yes, in lower specs, whatever, you turn down some of the graphics features, but they're going to make sure it runs on a Nintendo Switch 2. Because the Nintendo Switch 2 has already outsold, like, everything. And it's like, you know, the Nintendo Switch 2 is surprisingly a bit more powerful than people were expecting. They're like, yeah, it's basically like an Xbox One X with a much faster hard drive. It's only slightly less powerful than an Xbox Series S. And so it's like, so we've got a Series S again. Like, that's our floor again. And do you really think Microsoft Gaming is going to, quote unquote, abandon the last generation of PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series level? Like, they're going to try and bring everybody forward again and not force them to buy the $1,000 machine. When people are saying, $1,000, I'm not buying that. Don't worry. We're still selling Xbox Series consoles and all of the new games are still going to run on that. Well, then what's the point of the $1,000 box? Like, oh, the graphics look a little nicer. Yeah, just like, you know, PC gaming could always do that. So why not just buy a gaming PC? Like, it just, I'm not predicting that this thing is going to be a hit, and I don't even predict that it's going to bring graphic fidelity for home gaming forward, because I'm convinced that developers are still going to be targeting the Nintendo Switch 2 as the base level, and it's going to have to run on that. And then, yeah, maybe there's some graphical niceties that run on the Xbox Helix, but I don't think it's going to be anything more than that.
Mm-hmm. We shall see. Let's get to questions here. Dan has a multi-purpose room in his basement. It has doors, so it can be enclosed, making the total space roughly 14 feet front to back and 37 feet wide. The right half is a basement kitchen with a small dining table and some cabinets. The left half is the TV setup with some speakers, a pair of SVS PB1000 subs. Currently, one sub is in the front left corner. The sub is on the front wall to the right of the TV, means basically in the middle of the 37-foot wall as a whole. I can already tell you what I'm going to tell you to do. It's pretty easy to.
He's already thinking of it. Don't worry. Yeah. He's ahead of you, Tom.
But hearing us say over and over how both subs should not be together on the front wall, he was trying to think of a way to improve their placement. He wanted to aim for the midpoints of the front and back wall, and he does mean the actual midpoints of the whole room, not just the TV area. Mm-hmm. But with the room being only 14 feet front to back, having a couple of PB1000 smack dab in the middle of each 37-foot wall wide wall does impede the main walkway and would be awkward with the way of all the furniture is positioned. On the other side of the 37-foot back wall is unfinished basement space. So he was thinking he could build a cubby on the other side of that wall and recess one of the PB1000 subs so that's basically flush with the wall inside the room. So what do we think? Well, would that be a good idea? Is there an obvious placement choice for his dual subs that would be easier that he's overlooking? Both rear corners of the space as a whole have doors. Both rear corners. Okay. And the front right corner is part of the kitchen, so cross corner placement is out. What do we suggest? Offset. First of all, I would not sink it into the wall. You're basically going to make an enclosure in just directly around this thing. If you did that, it would be very hard to predict and control the reinforcement of the base that would be coming from inside that little thing. You'd have to make it a little bit extra big, and then I guess just fill it with insulation. Surround
it with insulation. I mean, thankfully, the PB1000 is front ported, so we're not dealing with any sort of rear or downward firing port that would be blocked in any way by having it in the cubby. It is entirely possible to use a PB1000 that is recessed into a wall. That's not really the concern here. Yeah, so, you know, like I had immediately the same thought as well, which is that, yeah, you don't have to be literally the middle of the front wall, literally the middle of the back wall, if that is inconvenient. I do think that we can do better than the current placement of both subs on the front wall, and in no way symmetrical to the room itself, right? Everything is shifted over to the left side of this very wide, 37-foot wide room, you know, with the way things are oriented. But yeah, he was pointing out how it's like, yeah, you've basically got this one continuous long walkway that goes behind the couch all the way along the 37-foot wall as the back wall, and gives you one continuous walkway from one door on one end of the room to the other, you know, through the dining area, through the kitchen area, through the living room area. And he's like, yeah, he doesn't want anything impeding that entire length of the walkway.
I wish I had better pictures of the kitchen. It's a little hard to understand what I'm seeing in some of these spots.
Yeah, because it's like, how much could you shimmy the subwoofer that would be against the back wall? Like, shimmying it over to the left would either put it, on the other side of the door. Like, either way, it's going to be behind the couch and a bit awkward. I agree. Yeah. And if you shimmied it all the way over to the left of the back wall so that it's past the left side of the couch, then I don't really think there is a good place that's that far to the right along the front wall, because you're definitely into the kitchen at that point.
Stupid. Are you ready for something stupid, Rob?
What is it, Tom?
Look at the open bays at the top of this thing.
Because this is an unfinished ceiling.
Yeah. Is there any chance we could elevate these subwoofers? Because that would be an insane thing to do, but also would totally work.
Right.
By the way. I wonder if you
we're
could
avoiding construction other than some sort of obviously hefty bracket that will hold the subwoofers in place.
Yeah.
I mean, do we have to put both subs in the ceiling? I don't think we do.
I don't think so.
One could go towards the back, up in the ceiling. I'm a little well, I don't know. He's obviously not super concerned about soundproofing, because it's already got these open bays in the ceiling. It's already an unfinished space on the other side of the wall. He was already thinking about cutting a big old hole in that back wall. I mean, perhaps enclosing it on the back end, but considering cutting a big old hole in the back wall so that the sub could sit flush on the back wall.
So, okay, if you want to do the thing that you want to do, which I don't necessarily love, but is not the worst idea. You just have to do it right. So what you would have to do is cut the hole. And I know you want the hole to be the size of the subwoofer, so that's its smallest hole possible, right? So you cut that hole, but then around the subwoofer in the back, you're going to have to build another enclosure. Right. And that enclosure should have 12 inches all the way around the subwoofer at the very least. And then you would fill that with just regular old insulation as best you can. And remember, this has to be completely enclosed as well. So it's like a real wall, not just like, in order to contain the sound. I mean, it's not containing it, but you're looking for a barrier.
You're replacing the wall.
Yes.
That's what you're doing.
Yeah. And then, so they'd have to have an outlet and everything in there, because you'd be building, you don't just want an opening, to put an extension cord through or something like that.
But I'm going to say, if you decide that is the only solution that you're happy with, like we say, performance-wise, it can work. We're not saying that it cannot work, so it's an okay idea. But there is no world in which I say you start cutting holes in that back wall until you have temporarily simply put one subwoofer in the middle of the back wall without the hole cut and try out to make sure that the performance, it's not going to be identical, because once you recess it into the wall, it is going to change somewhat. But to get at least a modicum of a similar idea of, hey, does repositioning my sub that is currently in the front left corner of this room, repositioning it to the back wall, does that make a worthwhile difference? Because if it really doesn't make any worthwhile improvement whatsoever, I don't want to undertake construction. As simple as that.
I wonder if these bays are open to, because the wall looks like it just stops there, but no, there's a black something that connects to the top of the bay. It's very hard to understand what I'm seeing in some of these pictures. So I wonder if the bays are just open to the next room anyways, in which case then this is all moot, because the sound's transferring.
The sound's already going through those open ceiling bays. Yeah, I'm not sure if that's
then it doesn't matter where you put the subwoofer, because you can't predict what's going to happen anyways. And I would put it against the back wall, just away from having them both at the front, or stack them. Just have one big subwoofer instead.
Because a PP1000s, a pair of them in this room, they are reaching their output limits. You're not hitting reference cinema volume with a pair of PP1000s in a room of this size. And then if those ceiling bays are actually open air to the unfinished room that's behind this room, then you've got way more volume of air than you were even thinking that you had.
Yeah, because there's the picture with the back of the couch that's facing the couch, and you can see there's like a black scrim or something above the wall. but it doesn't look like it goes all the way up into those bays. And if
it doesn't go all the way up, but I don't know if those bays are closed off. Yeah, on the other side, I think that's foundation, because we can see what sort of looks like foundation insulation that's fitting in the end of the bays on what is the front wall where the TV is. But yeah, the back wall, it might just be completely open to that unfinished space on the other side of the house.
Yeah, in which case our suggestions will change based on that.
To pretty much, at that point, I think I would just stack them. I think I'd leave it at that.
I think I would too. That would be because at that point you can't predict the performance by the shape of the room. So just stack them, get as much output as you can, and then get them in DSP.
And having both subs, just figure on them. Now it's one more powerful sub. Just think of it that way. Having your single sub in the middle of the front wall is like the best place to put a single sub. So that might be the ultimate solution here.
Yeah, it's hard to take pictures, especially in theater rooms, because everything's so dark by definition. So I feel you, and I'm not insulting the pictures at all. I just can't see.
The idea is in no way a bad idea. It makes sense. Like we say, it could work. We're not saying it can't work at all. But there are things I would examine first before undergoing construction. That's all.
Yeah. Kevin appreciated the suggestions that Rob, Lee, and Joe gave regarding his basement home gym setup, in which the in-wall speakers and which in-wall speakers he should install. As he previously mentioned, he'll be powering the speakers with a couple of amplifier channels on his distribution amp. When he was using his DefTech towers, the connections were easy since he could just send full range signals to the pair of towers, and then the DefTech's built-in self-powered bass. Sorry. Grammarly, cut it out. Built-in self-powered bass drivers handled the bass duties without any additional subwoofers and amplifiers needed. Also, as he said previously, he's already made peace that even with 8-inch woofers in his new in-wall speakers, he probably won't have the same bass output as what his DefTech towers could provide. I think that's a fair assumption. Yes. So that will be fine for now. Mm-hmm. He agreed with Joe that if he ever does add an in-wall subwoofer, it ought to be a good one, which is hard to find and expensive, and definitely fully enclosed with an integrated rear enclosure. So perhaps an SVS 3000 in-wall sub if the budget ever allows, and he ends up really, really wanting more bass. Mm-hmm. But should that day ever arrive, how would he go about connecting everything and getting the in-wall sub and the in-wall speakers integrate with one another? His control for C4 16 amp 3.
As the model name, Tom, I can't do anything about it. If you want to look it up.
Some people hear me make these pauses and get upset at these names and think I'm insulting their question. I want you to understand, I am so unconceivably angry at these companies for not being able to come up with a reasonable name for their stupid stuff. It's not that hard. And I understand what they're doing here, but...
Yeah, there's a logic to it.
This one's not that bad, but do we really need the C4? It already says Control 4 on there, and the 16 amp 3. It better make sense when I get down to it.
It's 16 channels.
Yeah,
it's a 16 channel distribution amplifier. Makes sense, and it's the 3rd generation, so it's not the worst name I've ever seen.
I wanted that 3 to mean 3 inputs, but whatever. Okay, so his Control for C4 16 amp 3 distribution amp doesn't have any subwoofer outputs or a crossover that it can apply. This incoming signal to the distribution amp is just through a regular stereo RCA connection. But if you were to split that to feed the subwoofer amp, wouldn't the subwoofer end up playing all the time, even when he's using a different room and not in the home gym? So what's the solution? You can put an inline crossover into this situation, depending on how you want to define it. So
but the only RCA hit connections he has into his current distribution amp are from the source side of things. The distribution amp that he has doesn't have any RCA outputs of any kind. It's RCA in, which you can do input by input or universal, right? This one source is shared by all of the channels. But then you just have speaker line outputs to the rest of it. And so, yeah, this would be a little bit of a challenge, because if you're running your sources into a crossover before that then feeds your current distribution amp, you've run into the situation of, that crossover is going to be active for all of the rooms, not just the home gym, because you've put it on the source side of things rather than the output side of things. So what I think would make sense here, because you are talking about like one specific room, this is the room that's going to have separate subwoofers in it. I think there's an opportunity here where it makes sense to buy another amplifier. That's what I would suggest in this situation. And what I'd be looking for is one that provides, its own subwoofer output that you can apply basically for this one amplifier, either like speaker level in, so that you can continue using your current distribution center, and then just do speaker level in to this separate amplifier, which will power the subwoofer. Because we're talking about an in-wall sub, so it's not going to have a built-in amplifier in the subwoofer itself. So like basically a subwoofer amplifier that'll power the sub, but can accept a speaker level in. And then what I'm going to not worry too much about in this scenario is applying a high-pass filter to the in-wall speakers that you're going to have. Because we did suggest, pretty large 8-inch woofer in-wall speakers that you're already going to be running full range as it is. So in my scenario, in order to keep the price kind of reasonable, I would just continue running your in-wall speakers as full range, leaving those alone, but then adding in a new subwoofer amplifier that can take a speaker wire level input, so the distribution amp stays as it is. It's still powering your in-wall speakers, but you have this new subwoofer amplifier that is taking the speaker level from the distribution amp and then powering the subwoofer with a low pass filter for the subwoofer, so you can adjust the blend as far as the subwoofer goes. So one example, you wouldn't have to go with this one specifically, but it's an example so that you can visualize on the back panel that we're showing a little bit more what I'm talking about. So Outdoor Speaker Depot, their SMP 300, which sells for $500, so it's not ridiculously expensive, and it has enough power to power the 3000 micro from SVS. This has speaker level in and out, so you see 2 pairs of binding posts, speaker level in, speaker level out. So this is a fairly simple connection path, right? You're taking the exact same speaker wire outputs that would be powering those gym in-wall speakers as they are. Now they just go into the speaker level in on this, and then it just daisy chains back out speaker level out from this Outdoor Speaker Depot subwoofer amplifier, and still continues to power your in-wall speakers that you already had set up. But then it has a subwoofer amplifier output with, on the front panel, an adjustable low-pass filter, fully adjustable phase, which is really nice to see on here, and then of course volume for the subwoofer itself. So to me,
that low pass filter, is that fully adjustable? Because they have weird numbers on this.
It is a turning. 95. I don't know. If it's a detented knob or if it's a fully adjustable. I mean, either way, that's not really a problem.
It's just kind of weird that they don't have 80.
It is. That's what makes me think maybe it is fully adjustable and they've just marked.
Yeah, I think so too. Looking at that, there's like a little tick mark in it, I think is worth what, and it looks like it's facing straight up along with the phase.
The phase is definitely fully variable adjustable, because I don't even put anything between 0 and 180, so that would be very strange if they didn't give you full adjustment there. But like I say, it's not as though the Outdoor Speaker Depot SMP 300 is the only game in town. It's just a readily available, nicely affordable, appropriately powerful subwoofer that has all of the connections that you would need. So it's an example of what you could look for if that's not the specific one.
It says variable crossover. And that's the same language they use with the phase switch.
Right. It
says 0 to 100. So to 180 for the phase.
If there's any fly in this ointment, it's that we're not applying a high pass filter to the speaker side output, but you're already going to be running them full range anyway. Until if you ever get an in-wall sub, so all the way up to that time they're running full range anyway. So I don't see it as a problem of continuing to run them that way and then integrating the subwoofer as best you can this way.
Anyways, Joe Klesnick. Joe has a few hundred old magazines.
His name.
What did I say? Kluznik?
You said Kluznik, as you often.
Oh, did I? Sorry.
But it's Kluznik. Yes.
Klusnick. Joe has a few hundred old magazines, audio, video, interiors, widescreen review, home theater magazine, etc. If there's someone listening in Northern California or willing to make the drive there who would like to have them, we'd be happy to save them from going into the landfill by just giving them away. But if no such collector comes forward, what can we suggest we do with all of them? So the type of person I think wants this, because I don't know that people really want the whole magazine, but I think some of the covers displayed in like hi-fi shops and stuff like that might be valuable to somebody. I don't know that anybody's going to spend a whole bunch of money on them, but
I mean, he's like, look, they might just end up going to a landfill. So even if it's purely giving them away, that's better than that. Yeah.
So, that's the way I would like market them on eBay or something like that. I mean, I don't know how else to. The thing is there's no like national way of giving away stuff easily. You could do Facebook Marketplace and then open it up to like everybody and put $1 or whatever, and then in the description say I'll ship you however many you want. You just pay for shipping.
Yeah.
And do it that way. Because I think there are some people, I don't know if they want the whole collection. Right. But they may want specific issues or... Well,
and that starts getting pretty time-consuming if you're having to sift through or go to the extreme of like literally snapping a picture of every single one of them because he's got hundreds of them. That gets a bit much.
Because there's hundreds, right? So, I mean, you might say, I'll send you up to 5 for free. You pay the shipping, and I will pick the 5. But you'd have to put that in the description of how you were listing them on whatever websites you were listing.
Yeah, I mean, we know that Joe uses Facebook Marketplace frequently, that he's very often on AVS forums, so certainly that's obviously another place in AVS forums classified section to list them. He's familiar with AudioGone, of course, so AudioGone is another place that I would look to. And then, eBay, I don't know, maybe that's a bit of a last resort, but it's not the worst idea to put him there too. But one notion, like I very much agree and like Tom's suggestion that maybe it's just the covers that some people are looking for. But another thing that often collectors are looking for is the ads more than the articles, right? Having that historical record of the print ads, which are often very difficult to find in any other way, because unless, the entire catalog going back was digitized and posted somewhere online, like the actual scans of the magazine, sometimes you can find old articles, right? The old articles were optical character recognition and uploaded somewhere, and you can find the text, but the actual print layout, the ads that were in there, sometimes those are lost to time, and that's the part that collectors are really interested in, more so than the text of the articles or anything like that, which is obviously out of date at this point and would only be valuable as a historical record. So listing them as like, these are the actual magazines, this isn't just an archive of them, these are the full things, and you can have the original covers and the original ads and the original layouts. That might be a way to market them on places like Facebook Marketplace and AudioGone and AVS Forum. But if there's no luck doing things that way, like I don't think a regular library would be interested in it, but sometimes there are specialty libraries, and obviously being in California, that's one of the more likely places you might actually be able to find. Might not be specifically Northern California, but at least it's a big state with a big population, and the possibility of there being a specialty library that would like to have them donated, or like an archive or a museum of something like that. I don't know anywhere off the top of my head to point you to specifically, but again, it might be worth it somewhere that's trying to preserve the actual original layouts, the original ads, things like that, the original covers. Now, maybe the last resort is places that are trying to keep up digital archives, and unfortunately, AI training, right? Now, anyone that's doing digital archiving or AI training on these things, they would almost certainly be doing destructive scanning, right? That's where they physically chop off the spines of the magazines so that they can be put into an automatic document feeder, scanned that way, and then they would be discarded. They'd end up in landfill or burn or something like that, but they'd be out of your hands, and you wouldn't be doing it. And you might send them off to at least be preserved in some form or fashion. So those are all the ideas I could come up with. I don't know if Tom has any additions to that list.
No, those are all good.
Okay.
Let me scroll. Trevor, Trevor uses a Denon X4200W AV receiver with both of his subwoofers plugged into a single sub out via the Y splitter because of our advice. Just recently, he came across a write-up describing how, if you measure with a UMIC 1 and RubyQ Wizard after running Audyssey and then take a look at the impulse response timing, you can see how all Denon AVRant receiver models that came out before 2022 used an incorrect speed of sound in their automatic distance calculations rather than using 434 meter per second.
343.
343.
Those were transposed by Tom's tongue.
What did I say?
You said 434. It's 343.
I haven't had enough coffee. I woke up late. 343 meter per second, or 1125 feet per second, as the speed of sound. Pre-2022, Denon AVRant receivers were using an even 300 meters per second, or 984 feet per second, which the folks on Reddit claim leads to poor out-of-focus imaging since your speakers are not accurately time-aligned. The first and only time you see somebody say time-aligned is when you should stop reading things. Well, that's just my personal...
that is the point of setting the distance settings, is to time arrival, adjust the time arrival of your various speakers so that speakers that are physically farther away than other speakers don't have their sound arriving at your primary seat at a different time than the speakers that are physically closer to you.
They suggest that you manually multiply all of the speaker distance settings by 0.875 or 0.8746 if you want to be even more precise, so that your distance settings in your Denon AVRant setup will properly match the real distances and therefore give you better imaging and proper time alignment. Is that for real? Can we clarify the situation here? Is this something he needs to worry about and manually adjust? So we addressed this years ago when this was being talked about and came out, and we talked all about it and addressed the concerns people had and whether or not it was something to worry about. If you think about it from the perspective of functionality in your actual home theater, or in general, right? If you're applying a multiplier to everything, okay, or you're using a measurement device that is inaccurate, but is equally inaccurate to everything that it measures, right, and all you're doing with that measurement is using it to make sure that things that you measure with it are all the same. So let's say that you have this makes me think of something else I'll talk about later. But if you have a ruler it says it's 12 inches, but it's actually 11 inches. Right. All right. And you use that ruler to measure a bunch of stuff, and you want to make sure everything's the same length. It doesn't matter that the reading on the ruler is right or wrong. In the absolute sense, it matters because all you're using it to do is compare it to each other. So you're trying to get the time to all come to the sound to all come to the same spot at the same time.
Yes.
That's what time alignment is. So if you are multiplying your measurement by the wrong speed of sound, as long as you are measuring it, you're using everything in the same way, then it's still arriving at the spot at the same time. It's just the multiplication was wrong, but the effect is non-existent.
Yeah. So what is the key to understanding what's happening here, to clarify it as he requested? What Audyssey is actually measuring is the difference in time, right? Like, the microphone is not sending out a little laser-guided ruler and physically measuring distance. The microphone, because everything is done through the Denon AVRant receiver with the microphone plugged directly into the receiver, it knows here is precisely in time when I sent out the electrical signal to the speaker, and here is the amount of delay in time, in milliseconds, to when that sound arrived at the microphone. It is then multiplying by a constant, in this case for the pre-2022 AV receiver models, 300 meters per second. It's multiplying all of those time measurements by a constant, by a conversion rate, and then displaying the results as a distance. But this is a conversion that happened. It measured the differences in time. It then converted to differences in distance and displayed it to you that way in its settings, but it never directly measured the distances. So if you pull out your tape measure and you physically measure the distance from microphone location number 1 to any of your speakers, it might not perfectly line up with the distance that's displayed in the interface because it was calculating at 300 meters per second instead of 343 meters per second. But it multiplied all of those original time measurements by the same constant, and therefore the actual amount of delay that was applied didn't really change at all. But there is a scenario where this could make some difference in actual time arrival, time alignment in your real system. If what you did was run Audyssey and then you didn't touch any of the distance settings that it's made, you're not going to have poor time alignment, poor time arrival, bad imaging, smearing, anything like that, because it multiplied all of the time measurements that it actually made by a universal constant that isn't accurate to reality necessarily, but it used the same constant on all of them. So the original time measurements didn't change whatsoever. That's totally fine. What could happen is if you manually change the distance settings, because that's what you can actually change is the distance settings, not the time settings. You can change the distance settings, and if you manually change some of them, right? If you manually change all of them by the same amount, then the same thing is going to apply. But if you manually change some of those distance settings, but not all of them, you would have to change the distance setting with the knowledge that there is this conversion back to time. Because what you're really trying to do is change the amount of time. That's what you're really trying to do, is change the delay. And you would have to be aware that you would, as your conversion, say, how many feet or how many meters or decimals of feet or decimals of meters, how many of those units do I need to change to get the actual difference in the delay and the amount of time that I was aiming for? There is that conversion happening. If you're aware that the conversion that was used inside the AV receiver is 300 meters per second, it's not a problem. You take the amount of time delay that you wanted to manually change, and you also multiply it by 300 meters per second instead of 343, because that's what the AV receiver understands, right? But if you were like, well, I've figured out by my tape measure, here's the distance, but I'm not accounting that the conversion rate is not like as accurate to reality as it could possibly be, yeah, you could have a little mismatch there, right? So that's what people freaked out about, is that they were measuring with their tape measure and noticed that it didn't perfectly line up with Audyssey's automated results to begin with. And then when they started manually changing it, and then they looked at the Room EQ Wizard impulse response results, and like, well, that didn't change by the amount that it should have, given the distance units that I changed. It should have changed by this amount of time, but it changed by a different amount of time. That's how people figured out that it was using 300 meters per second instead of 343 meters per second to begin with. So yeah, as long as you're always multiplying or dividing by the same conversion constant, there isn't really a problem here, but it is something to be aware of. The other thing to be aware of is that the multipurpose program that runs on your PC, which is an upgrade, that one does use the 343 meters per second as its conversion rate. So if you have one of the receivers that was just on that cusp of it was just old enough that was what was built into the AV receiver itself when you didn't use multi-QX was using 300 meters per second, but then you paid for the upgrade to add multi-QX, it's like, well, now you have two different conversion rates within Audyssey itself potentially being used, and it was a thing to be aware of. But yeah, if what you've always done is run Audyssey and then left the distance settings alone, the fact that it used a rounded off conversion rate really doesn't make any difference, because what it originally measured was the difference in time. That's what it measured. It wasn't using a tape measure or a laser measuring device to actually measure distance. It was always measuring time to begin with.
This was a problem, the bigger problem, when people started using tape measures. What went from using tape measures to set their distances to using Audyssey or whatever, and their subwoofer distances would be crazy.
Yeah.
Like nowhere near inside the room. Like I got one that was like, it was outside the house, no matter what direction you walked. And, you pointed it in, and people would freak out because they'd be like, "Oh my God, this has got to be wrong. There's something wrong with it." And it's like Rob said, it's all about time. It's what they're really measuring, and subwoofers. That distance setting is all about setting a delay.
Yes, so. And of course, they ran into the issue of they were doing some of their adjustments in a mini DSP, right? 2x4 instead of in the AV receiver itself. And the mini DSP displays it as a time delay. They say, how many milliseconds are you delaying this signal? They don't say, how great of a distance are you delaying this? They put it in milliseconds. So people were like, okay, I'm adjusting it in milliseconds on my mini DSP, but then I run it back through my Audyssey calibrated AV receiver and the results don't jive. They're not what they should have been. What the heck is going on there? But yeah, it's because there is this conversion. It's just a constant that's being multiplied. But what was measured was always the time delay to begin with.
Henry asks, realistically speaking, how long do Ultra HD Blu-ray players last? His newest player is a Panasonic UB9000 that he bought in the summer of last year. How many more years would we expect it to keep working? I expect it to keep working somewhere between 1 day and infinity days because these things are unpredictable. I mean, it's unfortunate that we won't, and I'm going to put the onus on us, we won't really pay for quality the way we should. I was complaining the other day about T-shirts, and I watched this video from this guy who was talking about cotton and how there's different grades of cotton and how most, for a long time cotton was made from a certain grade, but now because of demand and cost reductions and everything else, it's made from this lower grade of cotton. And I was like, man, I have been complaining for like the last 5 years that my T-shirts are just garbage.
Yeah.
They just don't hold color well. The collars stretch need to be. I have to wash them. I mean, it sounds like I wouldn't wash my shirts very often, but by the end of a day, if I've been wearing a T-shirt all day long, the collars are stretched out. Like I can physically feel that they're stretched out.
Oh yeah, and
that's something that better quality cotton will not do. It will retain its shape and its elasticity for longer, but the cheaper cotton won't. And we won't pay for quality. And I am just as much as guilty of this as anybody else. Like I'm like $12 for a T-shirt. If you lost your mind, I can get it for $10 online. Well, yeah.
There is this whole it's so cheap that I know it's not going to last very long, but it's so cheap I'll just replace it. Like whatever.
But that also means that selling a quality product is hard. Right. And Ultra HD Blu-ray players, while they are a niche product, people are like just like bikes. People have decided that things cost a certain amount, and players are one of those things. And people are like, "What do you mean it costs $500?
Yeah,
it's supposed to cost $100. That's how much a VCR costs. Why would I spend more on a different player that plays a different technology?"
And DVD players got down to $39, $29. So,
I know.
Yeah, the notion of paying
why does this Ultra HD player cost so much? So they have to cut corners in order to be able to convince you to buy it in the first place. So there's moving parts in there.
Yes.
The last player that broke on me just refused to spit out a disc. Yeah. It just would not go. And I eventually had to tear the whole thing apart to get the disc out, and then that was it. It died. Could I have gotten it fixed? No. I mean, I could have, but it would have cost more than buying another one. So,
yeah, I mean, because there are physical moving parts inside of any optical disc player. So obviously the disc is spinning. That's a moving part. Whatever the eject mechanism is, that's a moving part. Even if it's a slot loading one, there's a moving roller inside there that accepts the disc and then brings it back out. Those are all moving parts. The laser itself is on a little tray that moves back and forth so that it can read from the outside of the disc to the inside of the disc. So, all of these moving parts, those are obviously the most likely culprits for failure. Anytime moving parts, that's the thing. So keeping your player clean, lint-free, dust-free, that is a factor in all of this. If you let it accumulate a whole bunch of dust, moving parts are going to start suffering problems. That little track where the laser moves back and forth, that over time can eventually need some lubrication. Otherwise, it starts moving not as precisely and easily and smoothly as it should. And given the incredibly micro distances that laser needs to accurately move to keep reading the tracks of the disc, if you have any hitches in the movement, you are definitely going to have playback problems. But sometimes that's literally a little bit of lubrication is all that's needed to keep that player going. So yes, upkeep and cleanliness of the players is something to be aware of. It has moving parts inside. Now, he went for the most expensive Panasonic player, the UB9000. That's their flagship player. And sometimes you're hoping like, okay, I paid all that money for the flagship. Surely the components inside are of higher quality. But the thing is, optical discs, like we're down to one manufacturer in the world that makes all of the optical discs now. That might not have been the case when the UB9000 first came out, but any that are being made today, that's the case. It's the same disk drive in every single optical player that's out there, so there's not like a quality difference to be had in the optical disk drive itself. So the other major thing to be aware of is that inside of any optical disc player, there is the laser that's reading the disc. It does, like any laser does, gradually and slowly dim just a little bit over time. But they put inside of every optical disc player, there's a tiny little potentiometer that you can change with a tiny little flathead screwdriver, and you can boost the power to the laser. Now, I normally wouldn't recommend that you do this on your own, because exactly how much you need to turn that little potentiometer, I'm not totally aware of. I need to look that up and find some tutorials that I trust to figure out how much you're actually needing to turn that thing and how much you should be boosting the power. And it would be very nice to know how to use a proper meter to confirm that you've actually boosted it by the amount that you should. So, I don't know how far in the future this happens. Hopefully there are still shops around that know how to do it. But if there aren't, I mean, there are tutorials you can look up to figure out how much you need to boost that output if your laser ever starts to dim. So yeah, if you're running into problems of overall the player, like, it functions, but I'm getting a lot more disk skipping than I ever did, or a lot more freezing than I ever did. It's not that it doesn't work at all, but I'm getting a lot more reading errors in that. It's like very often it's just that you boost that power to the laser just a little bit using that potentiometer that's inside, and your player starts working exactly the way that you want it to again. So, yeah. I've got an HD DVD player that still works just fine. That's going back many years. I've got a original PlayStation console that still reads. I mean, that was CD and that was a red laser, which is a little bit easier to deal with than a blue laser, but it still works. So it's not that optical drives automatically 100% you can count on them failing within 10 years or something like that. No, those ones that I have are way older than that. There's no reason they can't last decades. But also, yes, we obviously know optical disc drives fail frequently as well. So yeah, very hard to say as a prediction, but there is no reason that it can't keep working for decades to come.
Yeah. So Kaleidescape has their disc-to-digital service. If you already own the physical disc, you can connect a USB disc drive to your Kaleidescape, scan the physical disc into your Kaleidescape account, and then have the option to purchase the Kaleidescape version of that movie at a discounted price if it's available. So that's great, he says. So what about a digital-to-digital service? It would be terrific if you could somehow link, say, your Movies Anywhere account to your Kaleidescape account, confirm that you already bought the digital version of a movie from Apple, Amazon, Fandango, or whatever, and then be offered the chance to buy the Kaleidescape version at a discount, just like disc to digital. So what's the reason why this isn't available? Is it just a licensing issue with the studios, or what other factors are at play that might be preventing Kaleidescape from doing this? I mean, you're asking them to do a lot of work just so that you can pay them less money. That's what it comes down to. And I don't really see any motivation for them to want to do this, because the people who are in this Kaleidescape universe that are customers of theirs aren't clamoring for it, would be my guess. They might say, hey, I already bought the disc. Why can't I just have it on your service?
Right.
And enough of them say that, and they've spent enough money there that they're like, okay, well, yeah, we can do something for you. But are those same people like, well, I already bought it on Apple, so we can? And then you've got to somehow develop a way of verifying Apple and Movies Anywhere and Fandango and Amazon and all of those services that Ultraviolet that have died off or whatever.
Yes. Yep.
Which is another whole thing. So
yeah, that is a lot of agreements to make, certainly on that side. I mean, they could pick just one and say, from this particular service is the only one that we support, which would probably be the way that would have to roll out if they ever did it. I mean, I like Henry's idea. It's a very consumer-friendly idea. So certainly on that side of it, I like it. But Kaleidescape, they're in a bit of a tough situation. I don't know with 100% certainty all the agreements that they have, but when it comes to what they have available on their Kaleidescape store, as we've mentioned in the past, like the reason why Kaleidescape hardware costs as much as it does is because Kaleidescape, unlike every other software service, Kaleidescape barely make any money whatsoever, if they even make a penny, on the movies that they sell in their Kaleidescape store. Like, if it's not 98%, it's 100% of the movie money that you use to buy any movie on Kaleidescape Store. That goes to the studios. That's the agreement that they have. They make their money on selling their hardware, and that's why their servers cost $10,000. You're like, a hard drive doesn't cost $10,000. Why the heck does this server cost $10,000? That's where Kaleidescape makes their money. It's not a Razer and then we make all the money on the Razer blades model. It's not we sell this like it used to be. Video game consoles, we sell them at a loss. The hardware we sell at a loss because we make on the money, all the money actually selling you the games, right? That was the model for ages and ages. We're kind of moving away from that now, but that was the model. And so it's reasonable to think, okay, I mean, Kaleidescape, they sell you the hardware and then they make their money over time by selling you the movies. That makes perfect sense. But in their case, that isn't how it's working. The studios are getting virtually all of the money that they that is collected by the Kaleidescape store. So it would be the studios that would have to agree to a digital-to-digital service. And that's like, how many layers are we going through, right? Because you didn't buy the movie directly from Disney or directly from Fox or directly from Universal or whatever it is. You bought it from Apple or Fandango or whatever it was. So that's already one layer of abstraction. How does the money make its way back to the studio? That's what the studio cares about. And for Kaleidescape to sign all of those agreements and get all that to work and then have enough margin to be able to offer a discount, I'm like, I think that is genuinely a business challenge that they haven't found a way to overcome. So I love your idea. It is consumer friendly, but I think there's a legitimate business reason on Kaleidescape themselves, right? It's the studios that are greedy. We can all agree there. The studios are the greedy ones. But on Kaleidescape's side, to expect them as the company, the small company, to do this, I don't think there's a business case to be made for it.
Yeah. Sean has an L-shaped basement, and his home theater area takes up the short arm of the L. He's looking to increase his tactile sensation of deep bass. He'd like to ask us about adding a tactile transducer or 2 or 3 to his 3-seater couch, if that might be the best solution. The theater area is roughly 15 by 12 and a half, which means nothing. The ceiling is in that part of the basement is 7 feet. His 3-seater couch is about 9 feet from the TV and front speakers. The rest of the basement, which is the long arm of the L shape, adds another 5,000 cubic feet, so he's dealing with about 6,300 cubic feet of air in total. There's no closing off and enclosing the theater area portion from the rest of the space. Mm-hmm. He's using Paradigm Premier 800F towers and the big 600C center, basically another tower on its side up front. The rest of his speakers are mix and match to create 7.2.2 configuration. He made his own DIY gigantic subs, a pair of them. They use 18-inch Dayton audio drivers, imported cabinets that have 8 cubic feet of internal air volume. My Lord.
They're not mini.
Think of it. He's got this smallish theater area, and he can't enclose it. Yeah, you can. Just put these subs at the back. Now it's enclosed. Didn't realize you built 2 walls of subs. He built two infinite baffle subs. A single Behringer NX6000 Class D amplifier powers both subs, and he opened up that amp and replaced its stock cooling fans with a much, much quieter one, so it's actually usable inside the room.
Yeah.
The man is certainly seems to be very handy. Mm-hmm. Given the layout of everything, both subs are positioned up front, but not to worry. By combining his front towers and the pair of subs and optimizing everything using mini DSP, he's able to achieve a close match to his desired target curve, at least at his primary seat. Yeah, there's the rub. But even with subs of that size and frequency response that good, he isn't able to fully pressurize the entire basement space to full reference volume.
Yes.
And that's where his idea of maybe adding tactile transducers come in. His receiver is Marantz SR6012, so it doesn't have the dedicated tactile transducer output, but he already has this mini DSP, so he figures he can undo Audyssey's sub-out correction and feed a non-EQ signal to his tactile transducer. He's experienced
that is possible.
He's experienced D-Box at a theater before, and he wasn't impressed by its rattling and distraction, but he's also been to a Dolby Cinema where he learned they were using tactile transducers in the seats, and he thought that was a great experience. So that's the sort of thing he'd be after. Mm-hmm. He's read that Krausen actuators are really good, but they're also really expensive. Then you heard us recommending ButtKicker LFE, and that got his attention. So do we think the ButtKicker LFE is the way to go for a setup? If so, how many should he buy to attach to his 3-seater couch? It's funny. All this information.
Yes.
And not a single picture or piece of information about the couch itself, which is other than it has 3 seats. So if this were a single couch that has 3 butt places for it, right. Then and it's all one structure, then you just need to attach the transducer someplace in there and it shakes the whole thing.
Sure does.
But if it is a
it's 3 separate seats that are just pushed together
like a sectional, then you're better off having 3 separate ones.
Right.
The idea that the D-Box or whatever, then I think a lot of my hatred of D-Box comes from the fact that the seats move. I don't think that tactile transducers is the biggest problem with those things for me. I don't like tactile transducers. I just don't like them. In general, I have not had a good experience with them, and I've not had a good experience with having seats vibrate artificially in general. Meaning I've had seats that are on top of risers that were not properly dampened or secured, and the dampers, the risers would vibrate, which would vibrate the seats, which would vibrate me, and I hated it. So I generally don't look for tactile transducers as being part of my experience with home theater, but you do have the ability, just like a volume control, to change the amount of tactile transducing that's going on. And you can, I think, based on what you're saying, dial this into the right level. And yes, you will have to undo the Audyssey room correction in order to make sure that you're getting a nice, accurate vibration pattern. But other than that, I think you'll be able to tweak it to what you like.
Yeah, it's funny because people look at the ButtKicker LFE, obviously compared to like the Aura bass shakers or the Dayton bass shakers or something like that, is quite a bit more expensive. Like each ButtKicker LFE, I'm talking about the full size ones, $350 a piece. So they're quite a bit more expensive, and people are like, okay, and I mean it's a stout, very dense, very heavy. And you might be thinking this is fist size. No. Like it's pretty sizable, the full size ButtKicker LFE. And of course, people are like, oh, you just want to be able to shake your whole darn house with it. And it kind of can if you really want to do that. But the reason I have always recommended the ButtKicker LFE, and look, I don't have any problem with the performance of the Crowson ones either. They are very good. And there's some others, but out of those, the ButtKicker LFE ends up being one of the least expensive. The reason I've always preferred it is because it's the only one I've experienced where, everyone has heard the experience of you add gigantic subwoofers to your system. And you could do the thing of, you play a sweep and it's blatantly obvious when that sweep transitions from your speakers to your subs, because your subs are 17 decibels hotter than your speakers. And there's this giant, massive, noticeable thing of, oh, now my subwoofers are playing. And you can certainly do that with the ButtKicker LFE tactile transducers. We're like, wow, my seat is really shaking and it's obviously not my speakers that are doing it. But the flip side of that is you can take very powerful well-controlled subwoofers and then seamlessly integrate them so that you can't tell where the transition happened from speakers to subs. That's what I've always preferred. It's as if every one of my speakers just became a really competent full-range speaker, and I don't want to notice that transition. And the ButtKicker LFE lets you do that with tactile transducers, where it's like, I can't really tell that the reason I'm feeling physical impact is because I've got tactile transducers. Like, you can dial them in to be really, really nice and accurate, and they're not buzzing and they're not rattling, and they have the frequency range, and most importantly, the reason they're this physical size and this weight is they have the subtlety of movement, a very, very small amount, but a very, very heavy weight that's just suspended in a magnetic field. No rattling, no bottoming out, no like unwanted distortion vibration, just a very accurate representation of the physical movement that you might get from pressurizing the air, but in a situation like yours, it makes a lot of sense. So that's why I'm always in support of the ButtKicker LFE as the choice. I do think it's a very good choice here. Exactly like Tom said, if you've got a single piece couch, you don't need more than one. You really don't. And if you can physically bolt it to the frame of a one piece all connected couch, you really do not need more than one. I will potentially make the argument, because it's like, look at the subwoofers that this fellow made. Look at the experience that he's trying to go for. If you were to get, because what they also offer is a little furniture mounting kit. And I'm not even sure I would call this a mounting kit. This is a platform where you attach the ButtKicker LFE to this platform, and then your couch leg sits on top of this platform, and it transfers the physical movement from this platform to the leg of your couch, and that's how it starts vibrating your couch. I've certainly found that if I do this on just, say, the rear right leg of the couch, you can notice that it's not uniform dispersion of that vibration throughout the entire couch. If the only place that makes sense to put the mounting kit is on the outside legs, I would want to have two at that point, like for the subtlety of the movement, for the accuracy and the uniformity of the movement. If your couch happens to have actual central legs, because very often on a three-seater couch, you kind of have like four legs, right? So like there's the two outside ones and then two that are on either side of what is the middle seat. And that is like, yeah, I could put it on one of those central legs. But if there's an actual like center leg that, you know, again, it'd be a one-piece couch that has that, totally sufficient to have one ButtKicker LFE, I could make the argument in some scenarios and see my way to two. If it's what Tom said, though, is this actually a sectional, or this is like theater recliners, it's three separate seats that you've just pushed together to make a three-seater couch area. Then I would probably look at, yes, one per seat, but not the ButtKicker LFE. That is such overkill for the amount. They have a slightly less expensive, slightly smaller model called the ButtKicker Advance. That's the one I would point you to if it's a one tactile transducer per seat. The ButtKicker Advance makes total sense there. So that's what I would suggest.
You'll see plenty of people online too who are taking their ButtKicker or tactile transducers, and they're flipping their couch over, and they're mounting the transducer to like a piece of wood, and then mounting the wood to the bottom of the seat in some way. So you're handy enough, it feels like, that this is something that you could do.
But not every couch has the physical space.
That. So, and that's where the little foot thing comes in handy. So yeah, you'll have to see how that works for you. I mean, heck, if you just get a big piece of plywood.
That's right.
You know, put it in the middle of the piece of plywood, set the whole couch down on the top of the plywood, and attach the feet to the couch securely.
If this is a all, like, it's a couch. You buy it as a couch. It comes as a couch. It's not in pieces. You do not need more than one ButtKicker LFE. It will absolutely handle a full couch, all just one on its own.
So he heard Rob mention or recommend the Dayton SA1000 amp as a good alternative to ButtKicker's own amp, which is almost always out of stock, and also has lots of negative reviews for its poor reliability. But he's been happy with his Behringer NX6000 amp after replacing its noisy fan. So he was wondering if the NX3000 might be a suitable option to power the ButtKicker LFE the transducers, since it costs less than the SA1000. I mean, it's all about how much power it demands, and what's the max output, and making sure that those things match up. And if it has the right amount of power, then whatever, it's fine. Yep.
It is totally up to this task. You absolutely could use an NX3000. Yes, one of the major reasons that it's often not recommended is because, it sounds like a mini jet engine is going off with the stock cooling fan. That thing is not meant to be in the same room as the thing that it is powering, which is fine. It's a pro amp. It's meant to be like a DJ setup type of amp, and it makes sense that you're not going to hear the cooling fan in that scenario. But you're already familiar with doing the replacement. Yeah, it's a totally reasonable and fine thing. It can power 2 ButtKicker LFEs, no problem.
Gurinder came across an open box selling 65-inch Sony OLED TV model at Best Buy Canada. It's the XR8B, a variant of the Bravia 8 that uses an LG Display W OLED panel. He decided to snap it up. An old Sony remote that he already had on hand allowed him to access the service menu, where he could look up how many hours this open box unit had already been used. It said 673 hours, probably continuously, by the way. They turned it on, and 673 hours later, you picked it up.
I don't know, but yeah, that's more than just a customer return. Like, immediately decided that for whatever reason they needed to return this TV. That TV has definitely been turned on before.
So it was a used TV for sure, and it was missing some of the removable plastic covers that go on the back to hide all the ports and cables and whatnot. But naturally, his main concern was whether it had any performance problems. So he quickly went to its YouTube app and put some solid color and grayscale patterns on the screen. Nothing obvious jumped out at him as any sort of problem. Turn off the TV and stop looking at it immediately. Immediately stop what you're doing. Like, I sat in my seat, I put up some gray screens and everything looks fine. Stop. Hey, I was watching somebody play a game the other day on like a Games Done Quick, the big thing that gamers do twice a year to raise money for cancer or whatever. And there was a single pixel, it looked like, point in the middle of the game that was like the aiming reticular or whatever that's called or whatever. Reticule. It wasn't really for aiming, but it was like, this shows you like where you're looking. I don't really know why that pixel was white, but I kept turning my TV off and on again to see if whether or not, I kept changing to different apps to make sure that wasn't like my TV that was doing it. It's in the video. It's not the screen itself showing a flaw. Yes. So once you know that something is fine, stop looking at it, because if not, you will find out that you will find something. It is inevitable. Okay. In statistics, we have this thing where there is the phenomenon that if you look at enough variables, you will inevitably find significance. Okay. And it's just because of how statistics works. You will find a false positive somewhere because you look at enough stuff. So if you survey a bunch of people and you're only looking for one specific thing through the survey, and you find significance, that's way more impressive and means more to the statistics community than if you looked at 20 or 30 different things through a survey and found significance with one of them, because that could be a false positive.
Sure.
So you continuing to look at your TV and trying to find something wrong with it means you will find something wrong with it. Wow. It is inevitable. Anyways, so he confirmed that the built-in speakers work fine and they actually sound pretty decent. I would never have looked at that. My big problem with my TV is I can't figure out how to. I mean, I know the TV speakers are off because I've verified it, but I would like it to say it somewhere on the menu. It doesn't say turn TV speakers off. It just says, where do you want the audio to come from? Right. And I'm like, well, you're not getting any audio, so I don't know why you're even asking me this question. Turn the speakers off. So what else should he test before his return window closes? What flaws should he look out for, and what can he use to test if those flaws exist? Like I said, Rob's going to tell you a bunch of tests that you could do, and that's great. It's a terrible idea, as far as I'm concerned. You have looked at the TV. You've done the more than I did, which is I never looked up gray screens because I know that OLEDs can sometimes have, some banding.
Oh, we're going to talk about that. Yes,
in gray screens, and I know that if I know that that's going on, I will see it.
Yep.
But if I don't know that it's going on and I forget it exists, then through just watching regular content, I'll never notice it.
Yeah.
And if I never notice it, is it really there? Mm-hmm. Is it really there? I think the answer is no, it's not. And therefore, I am happy. I'm a happier person for my ignorance. So thank you. This has been my TED Talk.
Yes. So, look, I bought, when I bought my G3, going back a few years, I bought it as a Geek Squad certified open box unit. That was one of the ways to get the price down to a somewhat reasonable level. Mine did seem to be it was a customer return. It had barely been turned on. It had not been used for any length of time. And so, I because I was still spending a lot of money, even though it was a discounted one. It was a G3. I wanted to make sure that panel was flawless. I didn't want a single stuck pixel or anything like that. So if that's the way you're feeling about it, and look, Best Buy is very good about their returns as long as you're within their return window. So if that's what we're dealing with, so I put on a full black screen, and not just like I put the TV into its black screen mode where it cuts the video signal. I mean, a video of a black screen, which you can find on YouTube or anywhere else. And that's to make sure there are no pixels that are stuck on, no sub-pixels that are stuck on. Because sometimes it's not like a white pixel that's there. It's literally like just the red subpixel, or just the green, or just the blue. Or in the case of a WOLED panel, just the white subpixel, because there are 4 subpixels for every single pixel in a WOLED panel. But yeah, just to make sure there are no subpixels that are stuck on all the time. And then the reverse of that, a full white screen to make sure that there are no subpixels that are stuck off and not emitting light when they're supposed to. And yes, this does require getting physically right up to the screen, because it is not going to be obvious from any distance away. And look, if you don't want to find that issue, because we're talking about a single pixel out of 8 million pixels, and then multiply that by 4, not even just 3, by 4 in the case of WOLED, millions upon millions of subpixels. And if you're like, there is one that is stuck off. There's a red subpixel amongst the 8+ million subpixels that is stuck off at all times.
Ignorance is bliss, Rob.
Ignorance could definitely be bliss. If there's going to be an issue with a WOLED panel, it is almost always, like when the panel is new, it's going to be somewhere around the perimeter. It's, you'll kind of notice it if it's midfield, but it's going to be around the perimeter. And it's like, yeah, you look right around the edges of that screen. Now, one thing to be aware of is, on the LG display OLED panels, there is an over-provisioning of pixels, and that's to account for if you're using that screen shift, the burn-in mitigation, where it actually shifts the image around by just a couple of pixels. It's very, very subtle. There's slightly more than 38 3840 by 2160, right? Yeah, there's slightly more than that so that it can move it around without you losing any of the image. So if you happen to find like literally 1 pixel or subpixel at the very, very perimeter of the screen, that I actually wouldn't worry too much about. That's part of the over provisioning, and it isn't really going to be an issue. But sometimes you find a whole strip of pixels like near the perimeter, and it's like those are all just off all the time. And you actually can kind of see that if it's a full white screen, like it's not a rectangle, there's this little chunk of a strip that's cut out of it. So you could look for that if you wanted to. Now, if you really want to torture yourself, right? Not just finding dead or stuck pixels, truly want to agonize and torture yourself, that's when you put on the full gray screens on your WOLED, and not like 50% gray or 25% gray, like 10% and lower, the deep, dark gray screens, because that's where any vertical banding is going to show up. And guess what? If you look hard enough, you will find it. There is not a single WOLED panel out there that has zero, like completely, utterly zero vertical banding. So yes, I suggest that if you don't immediately notice it, then you never look for it again. So lastly, I would put on some HDR10 content. I would put on some Dolby Vision content, make sure that everything is activating and working as it should. But yeah, if all of that is working, I think you got yourself a good TV.
Just do what I do. Live in ignorance.
Yes.
And also my TV doesn't do Dolby Vision, so I don't have to worry about
That's
it.
Right.
Did we do this
We
yet?
didn't do part B?
Vertical
Yes.
banding. Vertical banding on OLED TVs is seeing it kind of like noticing the weave of his acoustically transparent projection screen. He didn't notice it at first, and life was much better because after he did see the weave during a very bright scene for the first time, he can never not notice it. Welcome.
Yep.
Welcome to my side of the force. Whatever side this is, the side that refuses to acknowledge that problems exist. Is that what spotting vertical banding on the OLED TV is like? And is it more noticeable on a larger screen? Is he saving himself by going with the 65 instead of the 77-inch? I think bigger is always going to be more noticeable than
just by
smaller.
virtue of if it's filling a larger portion of your field of view, there's a greater chance you'll see it, sure.
But the question that the vertical banding is worse on a on a bigger TV versus a smaller TV? The answer is I don't know. I don't know why it would be, but maybe it would.
No, I mean, an LG display does have a couple of different factories, and it's from my knowledge of it, the vertical banding originates from, it is a heat-based process that smushes together all the layers of the final OLED panel, and so it's down to there being a little bit of uneven heating during that process that causes these vertical bands. And so typically what we're finding is, because they've refined and improved it over the years, and it's to the point that vertical banding is really quite minimal at this point, and then people have been pointing out on how the brand new G6, they seem to have eliminated it now. It seems to be like flawless, thanks largely to the processing more so than the inherent panel itself. But yeah, it seems like the very first one in a run, because there's a whole huge line of them that go through the heating rollers, and it's like the very first panel and the very last panel, where maybe the heater wasn't fully up to uniform heat at the beginning, and maybe it was just starting to cool down on the very last one that goes through that roll. It's like those panels seem to be the ones that have the worst, so there's still a little bit of a panel lottery out there. But yeah, I think your analogy is, like, obviously it's not exactly one-to-one. The weave of an acoustic transparent screen doesn't look exactly the same as vertical banding looks, but it is a similar situation where it's like, I never saw it at first, and then one day I noticed that it's not perfectly uniform, and now I can never not see it. And it's like, yeah, that's about it. That's about what it's like.
Infinite Gary says, Sparky, the puppy has arrived. And there's a picture of a puppy on our YouTube channel, and also in our Flickr album on the show notes. So if you want to see a puppy who's climbing a fence or something, I don't know what this puppy is doing. It looks like they're on top of a puppy pad, which is what people use to train their puppies. It does make sense. So his quadraphonic speaker setup isn't quite complete yet, but it won't be long. And don't worry, he also has a quiet speaker-free playpen in a different room. Just turn the speakers off. It's the same. Why do you have to have a different? Anyways,
it's Gary. He's got to have separate setups.
And so he isn't being subjected to audio at all times or anything. So far, he's a little bundle of energy. Yeah, the dog's gonna grow up real weird. So, sorry, Gary. It's like, this is my quiet space. This is my surround sound space. I have a 2-channel setup too, but I can't take you there. That's only for the weekends.
Seems like it.
So now turning back to home theater stuff. So if you take a regular speaker and you face it directly at the wall instead of how you'd normally face it into the room, if you go to the other side of that wall in the adjacent room, you can hear the difference. Facing the speaker to fire at the wall makes it louder in the other room, which obviously makes sense. But what about subwoofers? We've already discussed this ad nauseum, but okay. We talk about how bass radiates out from the sub in basically a spherical pattern, and we talk about how you do not need to be concerned about which way the driver of the subwoofer faces, aim it any which way. Subwoofers don't need to image or be towed in the way that speakers do. What about the room on the other side of the wall, or the apartment below your apartment if you have a downfiring sub? Does having the subwoofer driver facing straight into the wall or straight down at the floor make a difference in terms of sound transmission the same way facing a speaker into the wall does? So I don't have any data specifically on this. The way that subwoofer, the sound waves propagate out from the subwoofer is that the driver pushes the air, and then the air from the driver wraps all the way, it wraps all the way around the subwoofer and then radiates out from there, basically. So if you were to face it directly at a wall, would the sound on the other side of that wall be noticeably or measurably louder? I think the answer is probably yes, would be my guess, but only because the physical, the air, the wind, the wave coming off the driver is literally immediately bouncing off of that wall, which it's going to do anyway. So
that's the thing.
I just think I think that just having the proximity, there's going to be like a reverberation right there of that wave. But I think, like I said, I have no data on this, so I'm just physically thinking. I'm just thinking about this.
Yeah.
There may be a slight difference. I don't know if it would be noticeable. It may be measurable, but in the actuality of the way that the sound propagates around the subwoofer, I just don't. I don't know. What do you think? That's
sort of the thought experiment. When what Gary's asking makes total sense, because you're like, experientially, I know that if I take a regular speaker and I aim it at the wall. I go to the other side of the wall, and it's like, and then I turn the speaker around and aim it normally. It's like, yeah, I can hear that difference. So why wouldn't a subwoofer act the same way? That's a perfectly reasonable, thinking it through. So the answer that I'm going to give is that it is frequency dependent. Because, at the very, very lowest frequencies, what you can look at as far as objective data goes is, we have like those spinorama measurements of speakers and subwoofers. And so you can see their sound power, right? Which is how much sound is going out in every direction at every angle, right? You're taking your slices and measuring every 5 or 10 degrees around the sound producing thing, the speaker, subwoofer, whatever it is. And it's like, you see at the very low frequencies, if the device is able to play that low, it's like, oh, that 360 degrees around, you got the exact same amount of sound going in every single direction. And that's why at those very, very low frequencies, it does not matter which way you aim your sub, up, down, left, right, any angle degrees, it's the same amount of power radiating in every direction. So at those frequencies, it really doesn't matter. But your sub is playing up, it's playing above 80 hertz. Even if you set an 80 hertz crossover, it's still playing sounds above that. And you'll notice on any spinorama measurement, 80 hertz was kind of chosen because, objectively speaking, that's about the frequency where the sound power is pretty darn close to a 360 degree sphere all the way around, completely even. But above 80, it starts to narrow just a little bit, starts to get a little bit more directional, so that there's a little bit more sound coming out the front above 80 hertz than there is going straight out the back of a driver that's facing forward, or a little bit more going down than going up if it's a downward facing driver. So because your sub is playing above 80 hertz and making some of those sounds, I can't tell you that, you go to the other room and you're like, I aimed the sub straight at the wall and I hear some more bass coming through this wall. And experientially, I think that will be the case. It's been the case, myself, if I've ever tried that experience. And so it's like, but what am I hearing? What am I hearing through that wall? Am I hearing the absolute lowest 20 hertz? I can barely hear it anyway, physical rumbles. Am I hearing even 30 hertz? Am I hearing the lowest note that a piano or a bass, a stand-up bass can possibly play? It's like, no, I'm hearing like, the music kind of thumpy bass, which is at least 50, 60, and very often it's like the harmonics are easily up above 100 hertz. And it's like, that's kind of the bass that I'm hearing coming through this wall, just like how if I aim the speaker at the wall, I'm hearing more sound coming through the wall. And I'm like, it is frequency dependent, it is sound power radiation dependent, and it makes sense that, you aim the subwoofer straight at the wall and you do hear more bass coming through. But I don't think it's like the 20 hertz bass, it's the above 80 hertz bass.
Yeah, just remember that the regular speakers, the frequencies they're playing are way more directional.
That's right.
That's why facing it at
if you
the
look
wall
at
makes such a
the
big
sound
difference.
power plots, then at 180 degrees, the polar opposite of the forward facing driver is like, oh, there's way less sound coming out the back of the speaker at the mid range frequency, and at the treble frequencies, you can get sometimes 15 degrees off of dead ahead straight in front of it. And it's like, oh, there's considerably less power coming out of that tweeter at this off angle.
And I don't blame anybody for this being a hard thing to understand. And this is why science and scientists are so important, because even though I know that these low frequencies are equally loud regardless of what direction the driver faces, it's still hard for me to envision that the sound comes out of the driver and wraps completely around the subwoofer and then emanates from there. It's hard for me to understand that, even though I do know it.
Sure.
It's knowing it and being able to really, really understand it is a completely different thing. And I mean, I've been talking about this for over 20 years, and I'm still like, God, but how?
Well, and it's keeping in mind that it is a wave, right? It's like the air molecule that is literally the very first molecule right after like the surface of the driver itself. That little air molecule didn't make its way all the way over to the wall. That little air molecule, it did move, it did physically move, it's kinetic energy, but it oscillated back and forth. That little air molecule is still the very first air molecule right next to that driver, but the wave propagated through those air molecules and made its way to the surface of the wall, where almost all of the energy bounced back the way that it came. Very little of that energy makes it into the wall, but enough does that some of that wall itself starts to vibrate, which then transmits that wave through this different medium to the other side of the wall where you can hear it in the room adjacent, right? So it's like, yeah, visualizing all of that when you've got these very long wavelengths. So it's like, that little first air molecule, it's still moving in one direction by the time that wavefront has already made it to the wall surface. And it's like, that's why it already bounced off of that surface, went to the other side of the room and came back before the first air molecule has even stopped moving and turned back around to go in the other direction. It's like, yeah, it's all hard to visualize all of it, but that's why the sound power is like a uniform sphere at the very low frequencies. But your subwoofer is playing higher than that, so it is still somewhat directional, and aiming the sub straight into the wall will make the other side of the wall a little bit louder than aiming the sub away from the wall.
All right. That's it for this week. We want to thank our listeners of the week. We want to thank Marco for going to avrant.com and clicking on the Buy Us a Cup of Coffee link, as well as our 120 patrons over at patreon.com.
Yeah, Marco, thank you so much for that PayPal donation. Really appreciate that financial support. And patreon.com/AVRant podcast is where you can go if you'd like to sign up to make an automatic monthly donation. So a big thanks to our 120 patrons over there.
We also got notes of gratitude for keeping the podcast going from Infinite Gary, Henry, Sean, and Gurinder. Thank you for thanking us.
Yeah, I'll say the names one more time. We got Infinite Gary, Henry, Sean, and Gurinder. Thanks so much for those notes of gratitude and encouragement. We really appreciate those. And a big, big thank you to everybody who continues to listen and send in your questions.
If you want your question answered, all you have to do is ask. You ask by emailing us at question@avrant.com. For AVRant, I'm Tom Andry.
And I'm Rob H. Now go out and listen to something.
Want your question answered? Send it to question@avrant.com.
This is AVRant.
Now go out and listen to something.